The top 7 easiest residence permits in 2024. Whether you're looking to lower your living costs, pay less in taxes, get more out of life, or have more freedom, more peace of mind, one of the countries will allow you to do that. First up, we have Bulgaria, the country located in Eastern Europe. It is a country where you can get a visa by opening up a trade representative office. So this option is applicable to entrepreneurs who have business abroad and they had that business open for a number of years. They want to relocate to Bulgaria, live in Bulgaria, and potentially become a citizen. It's actually a pretty good passport, even though citizenship is not so easy because you have to speak Bulgarian unless you qualify maybe through a different path, for an investment, but some of these options have been scraped. It is the path that requires the least startup capital, and it just makes sense because this channel is for middle-class expats and nomads mainly, and this is why we recommend the Trade Representative Office visa for Bulgaria. Now, Bulgaria itself, what can you do there? It's a good place for dating if you're looking for a younger girlfriend or wife. She's easier to come by than in your native country, which might be America, Canada, the UK, or Australia, New Zealand, wherever you're located. If you want to relocate as a family, you want to go live in Bulgaria, then it is definitely very family friendly. It's a very interesting country in terms of sceneries. You do have access to the ocean, even though it's not the Mediterranean. It's still beautiful. There are a couple of cities that you can live in that are by the sea. Burgas and Varna are both coastal cities located in Bulgaria, and of course they're on the Black Sea and not the Mediterranean. But if you want to live there as a family, there are a lot of perks you get to enjoy. Nice mountains, you get ski resorts in Bulgaria. The cost of living is relatively low. If you come from America or Canada, you can expect to get probably 30 cents to 35 cents on the dollar on average, depending on where you lived in America. So you're definitely going to be able to cut down on your living costs. What's very interesting about Bulgaria is, of course, its tax system. So you pay a flat 10% tax on personal income. So if you become a tax resident of Bulgaria, you pay income on your worldwide income, and it's not a territorial tax system. And personal income taxes, they are now 10%. And by utilizing certain deductions, you may be able to cut further down and eventually reach 7 to 8%. It's possible. The same holds true for corporate taxes. You're looking at 10% max. So this is obviously based on net profit. So you take your deductions, your overhead, your business expenses, whatever you have, marketing, you have tools, you have software, you have office, whatever you have, you deduct that, and whatever's left is going to be your taxable income. So it's actually going to be less, and certain deductions you can also take to further minimize the tax burden that you have to surrender to the Bulgarian government. Supposedly, Bulgaria will join Schengen in 2024, so we're not entirely there yet, but this is the overall prediction, and it's an interesting country, and they also want to adapt the euro, of course, but it's still bound by a lot of the policies of the European Union. It's potentially good or bad, but it's one of the countries with the lowest tax rates in the whole European Union, so we do recommend it. And like I said, the Trade Representative Office visa is certainly interesting because it just fits what a lot of people want to get out of living in Bulgaria. And like I said, in terms of lifestyle, there's certain attractions there for sure. Even though the weather is not as pleasant as the countries enjoy on the Mediterranean, it is still quite good. Winters can be pretty brutal in Bulgaria because the weather is just more continental, but overall certainly a very interesting option. Next up, we have Panama, a country that you've probably heard a lot about. It's located in Central America. It borders Colombia to the south and Costa Rica to the north. It is one of the smallest countries in Central America. Panama offers a territorial tax system. This is really where Panama gets to shine because it's one of the few countries on the planet with such a tax system where foreign sourced income is not taxed within Panama. If you have a residency in Panama, if you're a tax resident of Panama, you're not going to pay taxes on most foreign sourced income. However, that does not remove any tax obligations that you may have to other countries because local income may be taxed in other countries. So it fully depends on the income source, how your income is being generated. Let's say you have a rental property in Spain and you live in, say, Panama, you still have to pay local taxes on your rental income in Spain, but you're not going to have to pay taxes on the profit of your overseas rental property. So the government of Panama will not tax you on that income. They just don't, because it's overseas income. They're not going to tax that. It's only going to be taxed in Spain. And I can give you many more examples, right? But if you have, let's say, certain employment income, that comes from a country, let's say, where there's no corporate tax and where you are not a resident and you have no tax obligations to that country where your company is incorporated, you don't have to pay personal income taxes there. You pay yourself a salary, and you are a resident of Panama, then that income may not be taxed in Panama, right? So there are contingencies and certain things, but it's very interesting. It's a great option. But how can you get into Panama as an entrepreneur, as a business owner? Okay, so the Friendly Nations visa program has become quite a bit unfriendly in recent years. They did remove the 5K bank deposit option that allowed you to get permanent residency. So how do you do it now? You start a corporation in Panama and you sponsor yourself. This is what you can do now if you don't want to get married to a Panamanian citizen, you don't want to enroll into a local university, you don't want to find a job, right? If you want to stay an entrepreneur, if you work online and you want to start a corporation and you really like living in Panama, then do it. I never recommend starting a company unless you can make profit with the company, because it's just a lot of hassle. You have accounting, there's yearly taxes to do, you have expenses, so it doesn't make sense unless the company really makes money. If the company generates money, if the company is profitable, then do it. If not, usually not the right way to go about it. But anyway, this is how you can get in, and right now in Panama, you can really only get a 2-year visa. It's a temporary residence permit, and then once the 2 years are up, you can convert to permanent residency. But there are some contingencies, there are some caveats to consider. Namely, you have to have paid yourself a salary. So Panama wants to see, did you pay yourself a salary? Because Panama wants to see that you've paid payroll taxes. It's very important, otherwise you're not going to be able to convert. So it's not just like a paper residency that you can just put in your back pocket and forget about it. No, Panama wants to see more commitment. Panama wants you to contribute to its economy. Very, very important, right? And how you do it, you start a corporation, you pay yourself a salary, and you pay taxes. This is what Panama wants right now. The easy option, it's all gone, no longer exists. Who is Panama for and who is Panama not for? Well, it's a tropical country, okay? So in terms of climate, you don't really have that much variety. Even though there is a mountain city in the north that you can try out, if you want to escape the never-changing heat, if you want to escape some humidity, and if you want a little bit lower temperature at times, then you can escape to the north of Panama, which is just a little bit further north. It's closer to Costa Rica. That's where you have, mountains, and that's where you also have a little mountain city where you can potentially live in for some time throughout the year. There's an expat community there. Well, I said city, but the name of that town is Boquete, so you can try that out. And it's, like I said, close to Costa Rica. If you want to live in a big city, you really only have Panama City, but again, it's nice. It has beautiful skyscrapers, so if you're into that, if you're into big city life, then Panama City works for you. If you want to live in a smaller place, then you have plenty of options throughout the country, along the coast. Just look at it on the map. It's a tiny, skinny country. It's one of the smallest countries, like I said, in Latin America, but it has some variety, but it's just not as interesting as a place like Mexico. Next up, we have Morocco, the country located in Africa. And a lot of you guys probably think, well, why does he recommend Morocco? Well, it's one of the upcoming countries in Africa, in North Africa. It's one of the countries where you really have an interesting mix between the Arab world and the European world. So there is a mix of cuisines there. In terms of culture, it's slightly mixed. For instance, if we take a look at the most northern city, the city of Tangier, we see definitely a lot of European influence there, and it's one of the closest places to get to from Europe, or probably the closest. Talking now about there being water in between, so that's an interesting place to live in because you can get there by ferry from Spain. You can take the ferry. It's probably going to take you anywhere from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, depending on where you depart from in Spain and where you head to in Morocco. It's a very cheap country, so don't be surprised if you can get like 25 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, all possible. In terms of visa, how can you get into Morocco? Morocco is actually a pretty lenient country. You can get a residence permit, again, without proving economic solvency. So it's kind of like Paraguay. You don't have to prove economic solvency. It's pretty easy to get in. You can also enroll into a school if you want to learn Moroccan Arabic, and there are a few more languages spoken in Morocco as well. It really depends on what your interests are, but if you want to start a business, you can obviously incorporate a company and do that. That's an option too, but it's probably one of the countries where it's the easiest to get a residence permit. Plus, Morocco, like I said, due to its proximity to Europe, culturally a very interesting place. The internet will possibly improve within the next 10 years, and there are a number of reasons behind this statement. why I think they could improve, and that could really lead to a lot of changes in Morocco, because Africa is the continent, well, one of the continents with, the weakest internet connections. I mean, there are certain countries where the internet's better, but generally it's just not as solid as it is in Europe, in North America, or even Latin America, or even Asia, right? So when you're dealing with the internet down there, it can be a bit of a nightmare. But just in terms of like enjoying life, in terms of like getting a visa, the low cost of living, I mean, you're getting really a lot of benefits in Morocco that you may not get in other countries. But obviously there are some downsides to living in Morocco as well. But it is a beautiful country. It is, I believe, the country with the most tourism in whole Africa. It's usually number one or in second spot, Egypt is also pretty popular, I think, but it's either Egypt or Morocco. So these two countries are getting the most tourism each year. The Philippines offers a pretty easy retirement visa. I know this sounds now like, well, you're talking about nomads and entrepreneurs. Why the Philippines? First of all, you can get a tourist visa easily in the Philippines, and you can extend it for, many times and stay in the Philippines for potentially multiple years. But if you take this path, you would then have to get police clearance before you can leave the country. So there are a couple contingencies tied to it. But the Philippines offers one of the most liberal tourist visa policies in the entire world. There's really nothing like it. A few places are like that. I know in some places in Latin America you can overstay, and they're only going to fine you maybe like $20 if you overstayed for 2 or 3 years. It's all possible. Very lenient places, But in the Philippines, you can also stay for like potentially 2 to 3 years, but you need police clearance. Now, to get a residence permit, you can use the Philippines retirement program. The special resident retiree visa is available to people that are 50 or older, and how it works is that you deposit $10,000 into a local bank account, so it must be like a fixed deposit account, and you can't really touch it unless and until you withdraw your residency. And there's certain maintenance requirements, so you have to pay a fee every now and then to renew it too. So it's not that you pay it and that's it. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to actually pay a little bit every now and then too, certain things you need to do. So it's $10,000 if you have a pension or social security. So if you have, I think it's like $800 to $1,000 or more, then you can get it with a $10,000 deposit. If you have no income whatsoever, then you would have to deposit $20,000 into a bank account in the Philippines. Why the Philippines? Well, it's a tropical country, relatively low cost of living, beautiful beaches. I mean, an ideal retirement spot for Americans and Canadians. And Americans are really fleeing to the Philippines because, you can't beat the cost of living. And then there's obviously also the potential of finding love in the Philippines, which is very interesting to people. It's one of the countries with the most lenient visa policies. It's one of the friendliest countries. It's very friendly towards Americans. I think that's important if you're from the US or Canada. So you're going to get that in the Philippines. Make sure you stay until the end of the video because I'm going to keep the best for last. Next, we have Mexico. One of the most diverse countries in whole Latin America, offers a fantastic quality of life. From the tropical beaches of Mexico's Caribbean to the high elevation mountain cities in central Mexico, there's really something for everyone. Mexico is a great place to live. It's great in terms of culture. The people are very nice, and Mexico, it has so much to offer. There's so many time zones, and microclimates throughout the country. I mean, there's really a lot going on there in Mexico that appeals to someone from the United States or Canada. And Mexico has actually now changed its visa policy to the point where it's a bit harder to get residency if you go through the economic solvency requirement, which is the hardest path right now. If you have a pension or if you have some kind of stable income, you're looking at roughly $4,400 in income to get temporary residency in Mexico. And of course, this amount changes. Right now, the Mexican peso is incredibly strong. It may become weaker depending on several economic factors, but right now you're looking at roughly $4,400. And this is as of May 2024. If you have a dependent, add another $1,500 on top. I know this is crazy. If you are a family of 4, you need an income of about 10 grand. There's really no way around it, okay? You have to have that kind of income to immigrate to Mexico by proving economic solvency. Or if you have an investment or money in the bank, and that amount must be at least $74,000 right now. This is for temporary residency. Permanent residency is much harder to get from the beginning unless you're already older, and even then it's tricky. There are a lot of consulates that don't deal with it, they don't process it, so the best thing you can do is go with temporary residency in Mexico. And again, this is the option if you want to get in by proving economic solvency. There are many other paths, if you want to get a student visa, if you want to marry a Mexican citizen, or through the regularization program. Slovenia is another country that we do recommend because it has a visa that's geared towards entrepreneurs. So if you want to move to Slovenia and you want to invest in the country, then this is the visa that you've been waiting for. It's one of the easiest ways for an American or Canadian, Australian, New Zealander to get into the European Union, and you can do it by investing money into a Slovenian company, and the amount is less than 100,000 euros. And another option how you can qualify for it is if you have an income of a certain amount and you can prove that, there would be another option. Or you can also do it if you employ a Slovenian citizen. That's another option, right? So you have a couple options here, and these options are actually much easier than a lot of people think, because if we compare this to other countries, like now in Portugal, if you want to get into Portugal, you have to invest a lot of money and you cannot buy real estate anymore. Or if you want to get into Spain, yes, there's the non-lucrative visa and there are a couple other options, but Slovenia makes it a lot easier than many other countries, and I don't see why not. And Slovenia, and I'm talking now from my own personal experience, because I have people in my family who came from Slovenia, and I've spent time in Slovenia over the past, when I was young, where I grew up, because I grew up in Austria, and the people in Slovenia are very nice, they're very hospitable, they're very friendly to foreigners. In fact, they love them. And in my opinion, probably some of the nicest, if not the nicest people in the whole European Union. So if you don't want to live in a place where people are very cold, where they're very unfriendly, and of course there's some of these people everywhere, including Slovenia, but I think on a percentile basis, Slovenia just offers more friendly people than a lot of other countries. Plus the cost of living is about maybe 20 to 35% cheaper than in Austria, and a ton cheaper than in Germany or in like Switzerland, Italy. I mean, it's a lot cheaper, but the quality of life is still pretty good. It's also easier to get into the country than say Italy or Portugal, France, and that's why we recommend Slovenia. Last but not least, we have Paraguay, the country that we've been talking about a lot on this channel, and like I said, I kept the best for last. Now if you want to get a residence permit in Paraguay, it's so easy. Like, you don't have to prove economic solvency, you don't have to invest money into a business. I mean, you can do that too if you want to get permanent residency, but it's really not needed unless you have an innovative business idea, then of course do it. But if you just want to get a residence permit and tax residency in Paraguay, then I don't recommend it. You just get in through temporary residency. You must have a clean criminal record certificate, so you can't have any convictions, no misdemeanors. You can get in, and you need a birth certificate and a couple other documents depending on your marital status. So you really need to have a look at everything, of course, but it's one of the countries where it's the easiest to immigrate to in whole Latin America, and it's a great place. The people are nice, the taxes are great. Paraguay is also home to a territorial tax system where most foreign income is not taxed in Paraguay, so that's great too. Plus, you're looking at a 1-day minimum stay requirement per year to maintain temporary residency in Paraguay. And this is pretty much it. It's a great country. It's low cost too. You can get anywhere from probably 20 cents to 35 cents on a dollar. It's very inexpensive. It's a great country. It's cheap. The people are nice. The weather's hot. It does not have the oceans, so that's a definite downside, but it has a lot of pros going for it. Which of the discussed residence permits are you interested in? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in becoming a client, then please click on the link below the video. We would love to work with you and help you obtain a residence permit in one of the countries that we discussed today. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We appreciate you, and we see you on the next video.